What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I've got a brand new build to deliver as promised, and thanks to the power of mods, we've got a really unique playstyle in store for you. This is the Alik'r Mercenary. Interestingly, the Alik'r Mercenary was actually raised in the Dragentail Mountains, quite a distance from the Alik'r Desert in Hammerfell, and was always destined to follow in the footsteps of the ancient Redguard heroes. However, he gave up this old life, taking his valuable skill set to Skyrim with a burning desire to become prosperous and wealthy. The Alik'r Mercenary combines the lethal brutality of the Redguard warriors with the subtle art of stealth, killing quickly from the shadows when he needs to and earning a lot of gold in the process. But also, when sneaking isn't an option, he is even more deadly charging into battle, faster than any mortal can rightly move. His sprinting attacks are too swift to dodge, and a bash from his legendary scimitar will send his more brazen foes hurtling to the ground. We've got a total of 5 necessary mods for the Alik'r Mercenary build, and with them the playstyle in and out of combat as well as the role-playing potential are hugely enhanced. First, we have the alternate start mod for the more appropriate link between backstory and role-playing. Then we have the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod, which meaningfully improves racial traits and the race abilities. The Aurora Standing Stones of Skyrim mod reimagines the Standing Stone system, giving some much more interesting powers, effects, and abilities. And we use the Immersive Armors mod for his badass aesthetic. And finally, with the Ordinator perk Overhaul mod, you'll have a plethora of new mechanics to explore. This mod gives us so many options when it comes to picking a playstyle, and we thought it would be really cool to make a powerful build that only uses a one-handed sword with nothing in the other hand. It looks really cool when you block with it too. Do keep in mind that timestamps can be found in the description along with the mods list. Use the timestamps to find your way to each section of the video with ease when you want to. But with that said, let's get things started with the Alik'r Mercenary's race, Standing Stone, and stats. The Alik'r Mercenary is a Redguard, meaning he will begin the game with the following stats. He'll have 100 base health, 90 magicka, and 110 stamina. His health regeneration will be 0.75% per second, his magicka regen will be 2.875, and his stamina regen will be 5.25% per second, and he'll have a carry weight of 325. More importantly, the Imperious Races of Skyrim mod adds the following unique racial bonuses. The Dust Storm passive effect briefly improves weapons and spells after killing humanoids. We're not using any spells, but for our weapons this will be a great help. Nomadic Heritage grants him resistance to disease and gives him infinite stamina outside of combat. This is super convenient for sprinting absolutely everywhere non-stop. Then, Tenacity increases his magicka and stamina regen when his health is low, helping him to get out extra power attacks if he finds himself in trouble. Finally, there is a quest-related power which can be acquired after winning 30 battles where at least 3 enemies are slain. This power is called Red Sand Dance, and with it once per day you can greatly slow time while sprinting for a short time. As for the Standing Stone, we suggest the Warrior Stone. Now with the Aurora Standing Stones of Skyrim mod in play, it will come with 1 ability and 1 power. The ability is called Izmir's Scales, and it reduces incoming attack damage by a huge 75% for a short period of time when entering combat. The power, Star of the West, allows you to invert your current health, magicka, and stamina percentages once per day. With this Standing Stone, we're going to be quite durable, and with our high DPS and speed, we'll be able to dish out plenty of damage while making the most of our temporary 75% damage reduction. The Alik'r Mercenary stat spread will be 30% health and 70% stamina. Now 30% health might not seem like a lot, but with our ability, Izmir's Scales, and our extreme amounts of speed granted by certain perks, we'll definitely have enough to stay alive in dangerous situations, and every now and then you'll even be using stealth anyway. Now 70% stamina is for constant power attacking, bashing, and also sprinting inside of combat. Remember, our racial passive only lets us sprint as much as we want to outside of combat. The reason for 70% stamina, besides the fact that we will be executing a ton of power attacks and bashes, dodging around the place while sprinting constantly, is that it actually makes us do more damage. Due to our perk choices, more stamina leads to more power attack damage, and with this much stamina we create lots of carnage, if required. The Alik'r Mercenary was born in the city of Skaven, located in the Dragentail Mountains in Hammerfell. The city was located only a short journey from the Halls of Virtues of War, the ancient training grounds of the Yukuden sword singers. Due to Skaven's close proximity, the modern Redguard inhabitants were very reverent people, devoted to ancient Yukudens and their many sacred customs. The Alik'r Mercenary's father was no exception, and he was named Satakhan, after the Yukuden god of everything, Satakal. Satakhan grew up becoming an Alik'r Alik'r warrior, and even though he was raising the young Alik'r mercenary in Skaven, they often left home to ride with the other Alik'r members. This group specifically was very nomadic, but even still, Skaven was the place the Alik'r mercenary would be with his father when there weren't important matters to attend to. Just like how his father was named after something important to the Redguard people, the Alik'r mercenary's birth name was Frandar in honor of arguably the most accomplished sword singer to ever live, Frandar Hunding. The mercenary's father subjected him to rigorous physical training under the burning hot sun during the day, and of an evening he was made to read from a copy of Hunding's book known as the Book of Circles. While it did fascinate him, the Alik'r mercenary was overwhelmed by the immense detail he went into in his writings. Hunding had documented 38 different sword grips, 750 offensive and 1,800 defensive positions, and nearly 9,000 moves that were absolutely essential to sword mastery. The mercenary soaked in as much information as he could, but no matter how much he learned, he couldn't help but feel like his father was disappointed in his progress. In fact, as more time went by and pressures on him increased, he almost began to resent his birth name, feeling an impossible weight on his shoulders growing heavier and heavier from the moment he was born. Every night before supper, no matter where they were, Sardaukar would speak a prayer to the god of everything without fail. He believed that without prayer, a Redguard did not deserve the privilege of eternal afterlife in the far shores. As the serpent god Sardaukar devours itself in an endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth, these Alik'r warriors would devour any non-believers who threaten their way of life. Before sleeping, the Alik'r mercenary spoke his compulsory prayer under the appraising eyes of his father, asking Sardaukar for a place in the far shores in exchange for his life's devotion to the sword. By the time he was old enough to fight, he was more neglectful of his prayers, allowing his actions to speak louder than his words. He was one of the most skilled warriors in their Alik'r riding group, despite still being the youngest. He had even outgrown his father, who also rode with the same tribe. Nevertheless, no matter how much he developed, he still doubted himself, and never experienced the sincere praise of Sardaukar. When joining up with their group, they often rode to the southeast of Skaven, far from the Alik'r desert. The rest of the group rode all over Hammerfell, but the Alik'r mercenary and his father stuck to these closer by regions while the mercenary was still growing up. They would stay around the shores of Lake Belkarth and the Ojwambu River. Along these familiar trails, they could water their horses with ease, and there was an abundance of unwanted intruders to take on in combat. This region of Hammerfell was rife with wandering orcs and reachmen, and the Alik'r group believed their lack of veneration for Sardaukar and the Yakudan old ways meant that killing them put the Alik'r warriors in great favor with their god. Over the years, the Alik'r mercenary killed many reachmen invaders and orcs alike. He could recognize their fighting styles and react accordingly. He enjoyed fighting orcs the most, for they were huge and moved as if they were made from stone, strong but too slow. The Alik'r mercenary, on the other hand, was very fast. One dry, scorching day, under the harsh glare of the sun, the Alik'r warriors sat on the banks of the Ojwambu River, their horses quenching their thirst. They had stopped by a ford where the waters were shallow enough to cross. To the southeast, the Alik'r mercenary spotted a group of menacing, forsworn savages. His father and the others noticed soon after, and the Redguards unsheathed their scimitars in preparation for a bloody fight. Death and glory on his mind, the Alik'r mercenary was the first to act. He charged into the shallow crossing, letting the rushing water soak his feet. The temperature of the flow cooled him, and he splashed some water across his face. Then he took up one of Hunding's defensive stances on the opposite side of the river. The first response came from the forsworn archer, who fired a predictable arrow at him from an expertly crafted forsworn bow. The Alik'r mercenary simply stepped to one side, letting it land harmlessly in the sand. Another arrow came moments later. This time he watched it come and swatted it out of the air with his scimitar. The arrow fell to the ground in front of him, cut into two pieces. The thrill of battle enveloped him then, and before he knew it, he was face to face with a savage. The fight was quick. He parried a blow and cleaved the skull of the first. Then he ripped the scimitar out of the corpse's head to meet the second contender. By now, the other Alik'r warriors were engaging. As he went in for his 7th kill, he came up against a Briarheart, wielding two blades. He parried his foe once to the left, but was too slow, bringing his curved sword back to the right. He took a deep blow to his right shoulder and fell back in sudden panic. The wound stung despite his adrenaline, and he fell back to allow his companions to finish the fight. Soon enough, they did, as he had expected. As he washed his wound in the river, his father stepped before him. Rather than asking him about the wound, he berated the Alik'r mercenary, calling him a disgrace to his holy name. The Alik'r mercenary was furious. He was now a young adult, and he was still to earn the praise of his father, not even after killing 6 adversaries in a row, far more than any of the other Alik'r members had done. Not only this, but Sardaukar showed him little to no care. The Alik'r merc gripped his father by the scruff of his shirt and wrenched him inwards, staring him in the eyes. He spat in his face and condemned him. He wished him a happy afterlife in the far shores, for he would not join him there. He threw his father down into the shallows of the Ojwambu and strode across the ford to his horse. Without looking back, he galloped east along the banks. He was done with the Alik'r ways. He revered his ancestors, but he wasn't going to devote every moment of his existence to a god. So far, he had wanted the admiration of the man who raised him more than any gift from the gods, but not even that was granted to him. The Alik'r Mercenary wasn't sure what he would do, but he knew he would continue on with the way of the sword. It was all he knew, and while he was disgusted with his father, he still loved combat. For the next few years, the Alik'r Mercenary traveled solo. Doing this was dangerous, especially considering he had to explore new territory, where he assumed the Alik'r group he once rode with would never go. They wouldn't be too pleased to see him, and the mercenary never wanted to see Satakan again. Traveling alone, the Alik'r Mercenary lived off the land, often hunting animals himself and cooking them in a fire. He would often drift between various inns where he would sleep in exchange for selling them parts of creatures he'd killed. Occasionally, the Alik'r Mercenary would run into groups of orcs or forsworn, and he was very careful, often having to use stealth, a skill he taught himself to evade their sights and get the drop on them before combat begun. This ensured his victory. After 3 years riding alone, the mercenary was more hardened than ever before and far more skillful. However, he was further from the gods than he had ever been. His new life was very hard, and he wanted something new. Growing up, he had heard that many Alik'r deserters actually became mercenaries to make a living, selling their services to the highest bidder, and always being in demand and making money due to their skill set. He decided he would do the same. Traveling northeast, he met a few red guards in Alik'r clothing. They were mercenaries heading to Skyrim on an important job, with the promise of gold. And the promise of gold was good enough for him, so he joined their party, offering his sword in exchange for a cut of the rewards. With the alternate start mod, we will go with the Alik'r warrior option. This will bring the Alik'r mercenary to Skyrim with his new traveling companions. He may be inspired by his ancestors fighting with a scimitar, but when we join up with the Alik'r mercenary in Skyrim, he will be much more money-oriented and self-serving. He will prioritize jobs that pay well, rather than the jobs that will get him into good favor with Satakal and his ancestors. Therefore, we can bend any morals to work with whatever serves his self-interest. However, his default state is not going to be evil. He won't do deeds that seem unnecessarily cruel or malevolent, unless the pay is really high, and performing such deeds will be of huge advantage to him. As for factions, the Thieves Guild is a decent pick for the mercenary. There is a promise of huge financial gain with this faction, and he will also learn new skills to benefit him in combat. He already knows how to swing a sword and move at high speed, but improving his stealth game much further could just about make him unstoppable. Similarly, the Dark Brotherhood is totally viable. Like I said before, he's not evil, but if he has something to gain from the arrangement, he's not going to pass it up. Obviously, pick the speech options that sound the most neutral. The Dark Brotherhood plot will also let you get your hands on the unique scimitar Windshear. The key thing to remember when taking quests is, as long as it pays well. The Companion's questline is an option too from a mercenary perspective, even though he will view the Alik'r as far superior warriors to the Companions. The Dawnguard will also make his involvement well worth his time, and he wouldn't become a vampire. Finally, the main story and the Dragonborn DLC are options. For increasing his power will simply make him more of an asset to potential clients. They could pay pennies for a common sellsword, or they could pay premium for a proven warrior with the power of the Thumb at his disposal. But now that we have the Alik'r Mercenary's backstory, role-playing, and faction sorted, let's get into the corresponding skills, perks, and the overall playstyle. The main skills for this build are one-handed, light armor, smithing, pickpocket, lockpicking, and sneak. This character uses a hybrid of warrior and thief skills, and we won't need to worry about learning any spells. So with that, we can jump right into the essential perks to take, courtesy of the Ordinator perk overhaul mod. First up, we have one-handed, and this skill should require no explanation. The Red Guards of the Alik'r are born warriors, renowned the world over, and the Alik'r Mercenary is one of the very best. He was expected to excel all his life, and he did, but now he uses his skills outside of the arid continent, selling his skills where they are needed. From the one-handed skill tree, take one-handed mastery 2 out of 2, furious strength, overrun, disciplined fighter, rogue's parry, thundering blow, aftershock, clash of champions 3 out of 3, cross-cut 2 out of 2, falling sword, wind swept, into the dust, judgment, and wandering warrior. With overrun, a sprinting power attack deals up to 50% more damage and crit damage to targets above half health. Rogue's parry is perfect for the Alik'r Mercenary as he only has one hand occupied in battle, unless he's bashing, in which case he grabs his scimitar with two hands. This perk boosts your damage by 40% and lands a guaranteed critical hit if you attack an opponent winding up for an attack or drawing a bow, so long as you have a one-handed weapon and one free hand, which we do. Thundering Blow gives you a power attack that deals double damage after you successfully land 8 regular attacks in combat. This attack costs no stamina, and thanks to Aftershock, landing a Thundering Blow will increase your attack speed by 75% for 3 seconds. Great for role-playing and for combat. Wind Swept is great for your sideways power attacks. Each time you execute one, your sword will fling targets backwards up to 6 feet, dealing up to 40% more damage based on the distance traveled. Wandering Warrior is the cherry on the cake though, as it will give you a permanent bonus to one-handed damage up to 20% more whenever you defeat at least 4 humanoids or animals in a single battle. This will happen pretty often. Next comes Light Armor, and as I mentioned earlier in the Alik'r Merc's backstory, this guy is all about attacking at high speeds, not giving bulkier opponents the chance to take a swing at him. This maneuverability is achieved through the use of Light Armor. From this skill tree, go for Light Armor Mastery 2 out of 2, Annoying Mosquitoes 2 out of 2, As a Leaf, Light Armor Fit, Unhindered, Into the Maelstrom, Initiative 2 out of 2, Lightning Strike, Fight or Flight, Survival Instinct, Tempting Fate, Wind Runner, War Dancer, Glancing Blows, Evasive Leap, and then Wild and Free. With As a Leaf, you cannot be staggered and take 50% less damage from power attacks when you are sprinting, putting a good emphasis on constant movement. With Survival Instinct, you can actually gain 10% movement speed for 10 seconds when you are struck by an unblocked attack. Combine this with Tempting Fate, which balances it, and you'll be moving unbelievably fast. Tempting Fate gives you a 20% extra movement speed bonus if you are not blocking during an incoming power attack. If it misses, your speed boost lasts until combat ends, or until you get struck by another power attack. With Wind Runner, you get another 10% movement speed bonus in combat, and with Evasive Leap, you gain some invincibility for a second when you jump in combat. This has a 5-second cooldown, but nevertheless, the emphasis on movement suits this mercenary's playstyle perfectly. The Red Guards are talked about all across Tamriel, and the number one rumor you'll hear about them is that they have curved swords. And like all good warriors, this mercenary knows how to keep his scimitar sharp and lethal. From the smithing skill tree, grab Smithing Mastery 2 out of 2 and Merrick Smithing 1 out of 2, choosing Elven. Unlike many men born in the Alik'r and the surrounding lands, this mercenary is motivated entirely by self-interest. With his commitment dedicated to a much more tangible cause, the Alik'r Mercenary is about to become a very rich Redguard. One of many ways this is achieved is through pickpocketing. From this skill tree, take Pickpocket Mastery 2 out of 2, Cut Purse, Blood Money, Death's Emperor 2 out of 2, and Doomed to Plunder. Blood Money is right up the mercenary's alley as it rewards violent kills. With this perk, you can find between 10 and 100 more gold when looting humanoid corpses you have slain in an especially violent fashion. Death's Emperor adds an interesting power in the form of a cursed septum in your inventory. Reverse pickpocketing this onto a foe makes them susceptible to 200% more damage and critical damage. And with Doomed to Plunder, the dead body affected by your cursed septum will give you 100 to 300 extra gold when looting them. Most valuables in Skyrim are either stored safely in a lockbox or kept well out of sight for the common street criminal. For a man with the ability to lockpick, no door or box can keep him at bay. From the lockpicking skill tree, just get 2 ranks of lockpicking mastery. Finally, we have the skill that is crucial for the Alik'r Mercenary to not only steal the best loot, but also to get the jump on his foes in combat. Combining breakneck speeds with the element of surprise is a certain death to this guy's adversaries. From the sneak skill tree, take Sneak Mastery 2 out of 2, Silent Roll, Dynamic Entry, Infiltrator, Sneak Attack, and lastly, Problem Solver. Dynamic Entry increases your weapon damage by 40% after a Silent Roll, so this is great to do before killing an enemy and then initiating combat. And with Problem Solver, your Sneak Attack deals 10% more damage for each 200 points of health your target has, dealing 50% more critical damage, so sneak attacking a full health enemy will be really effective. So with all of these skills and perks in mind, this is how the Alik'r Mercenary will play in and out of combat. When you find yourself on the edge of an enemy camp in need of accessing some guarded loot, you can use your sneak multipliers combined with the cursed septum power for quick kills on unsuspecting foes, but most of the time when you engage in combat, the plan will be to sprint in, performing sprinting power attacks, bash with the sword to knock them down, perform stationary power attacks, all while dodging and moving incredibly fast. Make sure you implement plenty of jumping for the invincible seconds. Sideways power attacks will be incredibly effective too, but the main thing to focus on is constant movement and maneuverability. Sneak is a great way to get the jump on your enemies, but you won't be clearing camps with Sneak alone. You're first and foremost a warrior. Also, due to the bonuses of your perks, and especially the Death's Emperor power, remember to always loot your kills, especially if you used the Cursed Septum on them. As for gear, the Alik'r Mercenary will wear the Redguard Knight Cape, as well as the Redguard Knight light boots, gauntlets, coif, and mail. All of this is available with the Immersive Armors mod. Other than that, try your best to find enchanted jewelry with bonuses to one-handed damage, and the only other thing you'll need is your Death's Emperor Cursed Septum. The Alik'r Mercenary's weapon of choice will be Wind Shear. You'll want to smith this up to its full potential. This weapon has a chance of knocking down an opponent when you bash with it, which is awesome for some crowd control. It also has a glitch that makes it stagger enemies on every single hit, making it one of the most overpowered weapons around, but I think the unofficial Skyrim patch stops that from working. If you don't have the patch, let us know if your Wind Shear causes non-stop staggering in Skyrim Special Edition. Until you can get Wind Shear, a regular scimitar will work just fine, and for the armor you can use any Hammerfell or Redguard garb in the meantime. And there you have it guys, our latest modded Skyrim build fresh off the press. If you like what you saw and want to be updated on future builds, subscribe to the channel, and if you think it deserved one, give the video a like. The support means a ton. Don't forget that a full mods list as well as timestamps to help you with your video navigation needs can be found just below in the description. As always, thanks so much for watching guys. My name is Michael and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.